Thank you for joining our briefing on the city's response to a spill on the Delaware River. This is for press only. If you're not a member of the press, please log out. You can watch live on the City of Philadelphia's Facebook account. We'll begin our briefing with remarks from Mayor Jim Kenney, followed by remarks by Philadelphia Water Commissioner Heyman, a presentation by Mike Carroll, and remarks by Commerce Director Ann Nadol. We're also joined by principals from the Office of Emergency Management, the Philadelphia Water Department, the Philadelphia Department of Public Health, and the Department of Commerce. Mayor, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for being here. I want to start by acknowledging the hard work we have seen over the last several days by the Philadelphia Water Department, Office of Emergency Management, the Department of Public Health, the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection, the U.S. Coast Guard, and many others who have pitched in to respond and offer their support. These experts have been working all day and night to track the spill closely and evaluate any potential impacts to treated drinking water. Hello, and thank you for joining us today for the latest I'm sorry, I got the wrong page. So thank you for joining us today. Joining us today for the latest updates on the city's response to the chemical spill in Bucks County that has made its way into the Delaware River. I know people have questions and concerns about what all this means for them and for the city. And let's be clear, the city has been monitoring this spill first occurred late Friday night. The PWD has been active throughout the weekend, working with the U.S. Coast Guard and the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection as we are constantly monitoring and testing the water to ensure the health of the public. These experts have been working all day and night to track the spill closely and evaluate any potential impacts on treated drinking water. So thank you all for your hard work. Our goal is to continue working together and prioritizing the health and wellness of Philadelphia residents. That is our greatest commitment. That being said, I'll pass it over to the Water Commissioner. These are subject matter experts who can best discuss the latest details. Commissioner Heyman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening. My name is Randy Heyman. I am the Water Commissioner. Our duty at Philadelphia Water every day is to protect the health and safety of the customers and citizens in our community. We have over 2,000 employees who every day focus to make sure that the water that we give you is safe. Now, we are focused also on protecting our community during this critical time we had a chemical spill in Bristol Township in Bucks County. Now, let's be clear. What we were facing Friday night going into Saturday morning was a cloud floating down the river, down the Delaware River. A very serious concern we had as far as what is that cloud? Is it safe? And what is in it, and can we treat it? And that's a big issue. Can we treat it? Can we eliminate it? And it's one that we must be able to say yes to for us to have confidence to tell you to give your children a glass of water. Now, our main tool in addressing this problem is testing, old-fashioned testing. Now, in this day of Apple computers and Apple and iPhones and all, we think that you can quickly test. That you need only put a test tube down in one place or maybe a bucket in one place and you're done. Unfortunately, some things are still old school, and the testing that we have to do takes time. And we have to test it in several locations. So we have to test in the river, we have to test in the raw basin, we have to test in the plant. Now, other speakers will tell you that the tests have come back negative, and that's good. But there's still a process we have to think about, because as this cloud, this white substance comes down, it's traveling. And so it comes to in front of the Baxter inlet pipes, and we have to test it there. As it leaves, we have to test it as it leaves to see if anything else is coming in, or is anything coming into our system. Again, I'm proud to say that we've tested the river, the raw basin, the plants. All of the tests so far have been negative, and our engineers will give you more detail. Again, it's important to understand that taking the tests, once we take it in several locations, it takes hours for the accomplished scientists to review the data and to come back with information for us. It takes time to do the test for them to analyze and make a decision, then for us to make a decision on it. This process, again, took place because of the white plume. But in the end, it's our responsibility to protect the health and safety of the community. That includes your family, your neighbors, your friends. And we take that responsibility very seriously every day. And that's why we have to be patient to make sure that we do the right thing, that we take the right tests, that we analyze it completely, and that we're able to protect you and your family. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner. We will go now to Mike Carroll for a presentation. Mike, you have the floor.
Thank you, Joy. Thank you, Commissioner Hayman, and thank you, Mayor Kenney. So we'll begin with a quick overview of the timeline. And again, it repeats what we've said in the past and even today. This whole event started shortly before midnight from Friday to Saturday, March 24th, 2023. We became aware of it because the early warning detection system that the Philadelphia Water Department is part of notified us that there was an alert for users coming from an event that took place in Bristol Township feeding into a tributary of the Delaware River. The concern was because chemicals that are incorporated in the manufacturing process of synthetic latex and found within latex paint were involved in a spill, and some of those chemicals were of concern because of potential toxicity. Let's go to the next slide. So we have been testing around the clock, and I just want to make clear, reiterate what's been said by the mayor and Commissioner Hayes, that no contaminants have been detected in the Delaware River in the vicinity of our plant, and no contaminants have been detected within the plant or anywhere in Philadelphia Water's system. Your tap water is and remains safe. The water testing has been going on around the clock and will continue going on. The latest tests were received about an hour ago, just around 4 p.m. That testing also showed no contamination and that the water is safe, and that allows us to extend the deadline, the time frame for customers to continue using their water confidently until 3:30 p.m. tomorrow, Tuesday, March 28th. So again, it is safe to drink and use tap water, to cook with it, to brush your teeth, to bathe in it, of course, at least until tomorrow at 3:30 p.m. Okay, so use your tap water as you normally do. I want to reiterate, skin contact has not been an issue. You've been able to bathe with the water because it's not contaminated, but that's never going to be an issue. Okay, we will continue to test the water, and we will continue to provide you updates as we get accurate information based on the data that we collect. Next slide. Okay, so we have been testing, as the commissioner said, in a variety of locations. There are at any point in time up to 12 locations that we're looking at, including in the river outside of Baxter Water Treatment Facility. We've been also looking at the raw water basin, which is the water that we take in from the Delaware and store prior to treatment, at the influent, so that's the intake, and also at the effluent, where that water proceeds into the treatment process. We have multiple locations as the water works its way through the treatment plant to be treated as part of that process. And we look at every intake point, the multiple points from the treatment process into the finished water and into the distribution system, which ultimately ends up at your tap. We're also doing periodic sampling in other locations. We're doing targeted sampling as we're filling the water basin. We're looking for a variety of organic molecules that are used to make polymers. And these are the chemicals that are involved in the manufacture of latex paint products. So we detect this information through a process called gas chromatography, and mass spectrometry. So these are very scientifically well-established methods in order for us to establish contamination. We've been trying to match our detection levels with our partners at Aqua Water with the levels that the EPA has set for health standards, and they have achieved those standards. So we have confidence that when we're finding no detection, that to the minimum standard that would affect people's health, that contamination does not exist. So the smallest amount we can detect is in the single parts per billion, typically, okay? We're also looking at infrared microspectrometry, microspectroscopy, and that's able to identify single individual particles by using these types of microscopes. Again, we have detected no contamination. There's 3 chemicals we've been looking at: butyl acrylate, ethyl acrylate, and methyl methacrylate. We've detected none of this material in any of the testing that we have done. We conducted around 40 tests, and none of them have come back with any indication of contamination. So I want to reiterate, your water is safe to drink, and we can guarantee that through tomorrow at 3:30 p.m. And we will update in the morning if we are able to extend that time frame. Can we go to the next slide, please? So we mentioned the situation in the river, and that helps us understand the conditions and the possible duration of this event. We can report that the continued tracing that's going on in the river will continue until we're sure there is no longer any possibility of taking in contaminated water. What we understand from our modeling and from visual indications is that this condition in the Delaware River should last no longer than Thursday, and we may be able to say by Wednesday night that the condition has passed by the Baxter water treatment facility completely. After that point in time, we will continue to monitor water that's in the water treatment plant facility to guarantee that we did not take in any contaminated water at any point in time before Thursday. We expect this to continue for a day or 2 after the condition is improved in the river. And under no circumstances do we expect this event to last any longer than some point next week. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So we will continue to post updates at phila.gov, water.phila.gov, and on Twitter at our handles phila.gov, phila.oem, and phila.hdo. As information becomes available that we feel like is necessary for us to prioritize, we will continue to push it out through ready alerts and through the WIA push notification system, which comes to people's cell phones and their handheld devices. So we'll stop the presentation now, and we thank you for your time, and we're available for questions.
Thank you, Mike. We also have some remarks by Commerce Director Anna Dahl. So Anne, you have the floor.
Thank you, Joy. Good evening, everyone. And we're immensely grateful to the Philadelphia Water Department, the Department of Public Health, and the Office of Emergency Management teams that are working diligently to conduct continuous testing of the drinking water in parts of Philadelphia served by the Baxter treatment facility. Businesses and anyone can find out if they are in a potentially impacted area by the spill by looking up their address on an available map on phila.gov. Keep in mind that if at any point the water quality sampling indicates a potential impact to the river water entering the Baxter water treatment plant, both the city and the Commerce Department and our economic development partners will notify businesses immediately. Our commerce team is staying on top of these updates from the Philadelphia Water Department, and we will make sure that any information that is useful for businesses will be distributed immediately. Note that at this time, the tap water from the Baxter drinking water treatment plant that is currently available has been treated and tested, confirming that it is safe to drink and use at least through 3:30 p.m. tomorrow, Tuesday, March 28th. Based on this latest guidance, the city does not encourage any business closures or event cancellations. The Philadelphia Water Department confirmed that at this time, tap water is safe to drink and use. Businesses can continue to fill bottles or pitchers with tap water with no risk until further notice or changes. The city does recommend that businesses and residents always abide by FEMA standard guidance to keep 3 days of water supply on hand for emergency preparedness. And while we understand that for certain types of businesses, such as restaurants, this is a lot of water to store, it is the best way for you to remain prepared, open, and ensure that for your customers that you are operating safely. Commerce has been broadcasting the city's guidance on this issue through social media and our many valuable city partners around the city. And we are so grateful to our partners, including the Chambers of Commerce, Visit Philly, the Pennsylvania Restaurant and Lodging Association, the Greater Philadelphia Hotel Association, and neighborhood business associations that help us get the word out to businesses and entrepreneurs in the neighborhoods they serve. And we understand that the challenges for businesses might be different and substantial, but together with our partners, we are working to field your questions. Our multilingual business managers from the Office of Business Services are conducting outreach and listening to the needs of businesses so that we can assist accordingly with the latest business guidance that we receive. Please email the Department of Commerce at business@phila.gov or call 215-683-2100 with your business concerns around the current Delaware River issue. And we want to ensure you that every voice is heard and hope that you know that we are here working every day to support you and your businesses. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. We will now move to Q&A for members of the press. This is an active, fluid situation, so we ask that only one representative from each media outlet asks questions. Reporters are asked to limit their questions to 2 or fewer. We are limiting topics to questions related to the spill. If you would like to ask a question, please use the raise your hand function. We also have a Spanish interpreter available. So first up, we will go to Mike Donofrio with Axios. Mike?
Sure, thanks. I just want to be clear, is the administration still recommending that people store up water?
So again, we want to reiterate the FEMA guidance on people having 3 days of drinking water in their homes. If you don't have 3 days of drinking water in your homes, we suggest that you acquire that amount of water. You can acquire it by purchasing if that's convenient to you. If you have the ability to store your tap water, it's perfectly safe for you to use empty bottles, kitchen pans, pitchers, and store the water that you have today available at your tap here in the city.
But FEMA recommends that for all circumstances.
Yes, for all
not
circumstances.
just related to this.
Correct.
Okay, and then only 2 questions. So I guess just the other one, I know it's pretty clear in most of the city who's affected and who's not, but I did get Anne's comment saying that you can just go to phila.gov to find out, if you're in the affected area, especially for those people up in like the northwest section. Like, is there a place you can put in your address to see what treatment plan you're getting? Like, where is that? I'm just not sure. Is it on Atlas or where is that?
We could find out.
Yeah, we'll find
Hi,
out.
Mike.
Right.
Mike, we have a link in the press release that we have also linked in our blog posts and materials, has a map, and people can put in their address and look up if they're within the affected area. Thanks.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Mike. We'll now go with Annie McCormick from 6ABC. Annie.
Hi, in hearing some of the details that you just shared, so you were aware of this Friday into Saturday. The alerts didn't come across on our cell phones for Philly residents till Sunday afternoon. Don't you think that there should have been some sort of alert, since it was in the media by Saturday night, something at least letting people know there was a situation and monitoring it? Because that wasn't an alert that I received on my phone, and I am a Philly resident.
So we are always trying to balance the interests of protecting the public and making sure we have the best information possible, and protecting people's drinking water and not creating situations where people feel like we're giving information that isn't accurate. We did go to the press and we provided information. I can't speak to how well that was covered. What we were trying to figure out was how much time we had based on the information we had at our hand to give people so that they felt comfortable drinking the water. When that information was available to us, we provided it to the public.
And the length of time it takes to do the testing causes delays. It's not like you're dropping, a drop and you get an immediate reaction or immediate answer to the test. There's periods of time that takes, and you don't. And in the bottled water situation, in the abundance of caution, we just told people, if you feel comfortable, use that. And then while we're testing, and for each test we've made, it's not there. So, and we continue to expect that that's going to continue.
And I must say, we have to understand too, we're looking at a river. It's our job. There are things in the river that we see daily that we have to clean before it comes to your tap. And so the moment we found out about this, our engineers and scientists were evaluating it. We wanted to make sure what we were looking at. We had to have good data to understand what are we looking at? Is it a problem? Is it something that we have to do extra work to clean out? And is it something that we need to notify the public of? Once we made the determination that there was an issue here that did require heightened concern, we brought it to your attention.
In regards to water bottles being accessible, because at this point there's such low stock everywhere, and I realize you're saying now that the water is safe. But in regards to people stocking up, not everybody goes by FEMA standards and even knows that, including some businesses. So what would you advise for the people that don't have access to stock up on water at this point? And is the city going to be providing any in case by Thursday this is still a situation?
Yeah, we are working on a distribution plan. When that distribution plan is ready to go, we'll be able to communicate a little bit more about that. In the meantime, though, I do suggest people take advantage of anything they have available to store water and use the tap water. And we'll also, let folks know if there's anything that they can do as we learn that moving forward.
But the distribution plan hopefully won't have to go into effect because we won't have a problem. It's like when we built the hospital, the Leah Core Center during COVID, we never used the beds, but we had the hospital built and it cost us money to do it, but it was worth being ready.
And you already have a plan in place, is what you're saying, a distribution plan.
Just about, it's pretty much developed.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Annie. We'll now move to Saja Purple Blackwell.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you. So my first question is, let's say that in the situation where there may be contamination, are these chemicals that can be old school purified by boiling the water?
No. So they don't have any kind of a component like something that you can kill off. It's a different type of toxin than that. So there's no benefit to boiling it. But again, I want to reiterate, there's no contamination that's found in the water. So your water is safe to drink.
Thank you. And then second question, I think yesterday we discussed, the FEMA guidelines as of 2 days of water having stocked in your home or your business. Now we're saying that we should, the guidelines actually 3 days of water being stocked. Are we yet able to set what that means for different families? And
thank you for that. And yes, so we did reach back out, and the standard that FEMA goes by is 3 days, and that's defined as 1 gallon per person per day.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you. We will now go to Joe Holden with CBS. Joe.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to ask these two questions. First, Mr. Mayor or a member of your cabinet, what we saw yesterday, the run on water was precipitated by information coming from the city. Can you address what you would advise people when we're getting this information, passing it on to these folks? What is your expectation that they do?
It was, I believe, from what I heard, it was a recommendation that you maybe use bottled water until we can ensure that the water's not contaminated. We've assured the water's not contaminated now a number of times. People can purchase what they want to purchase as much as they want. But I mean, buying 8 to 10 cases of water at one time depleted what was on the shelf. So a lot of people couldn't get it. It was like the toilet paper situation back in COVID, where people were just stocking up on stuff and keeping it away from fairly getting to everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And my final question is, due to the gravity of the ongoing, I don't want to say public health emergency, I'm not sure what you're calling it, but is Zoom the best way to coordinate these things? Why not an in-person news conference?
Mike's has an opinion, but look, we explained this before. You can get almost the entire government on this one meeting. So if you have questions that either I can't answer or someone else can answer, there's somebody in this building who can answer those questions. So I think from an efficiency standpoint, I understand you like it in person, and we do more stuff in person now. But I think in this particular case, with the gravity of the situation, we're reaching more people now than we would in the mayor's reception room.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks.
I would just say, like the mayor says, we're working pretty much around the clock. So about 4:55, we stopped what we were doing for this conversation. And then as soon as this conference is over, we're going to jump back into some of the technical work, try and sharpen the messages and keep working. So it just makes it easier for us to keep doing the job that needs to get done.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. We'll now go to Pat Loeb with KYW. Pat.
She muted?
Pat, do you need my help? Let me see.
Hi, I'm sorry. Mayor Kenney, can you tell residents where you were over the weekend? Because a lot of the people running to replace you have criticized the entire city effort because you were not present during these.
Candidates will say that certain things, 60 days, 70 days before an election. I really don't have to concern myself with their opinions. I was in Philadelphia the entire weekend, been briefed on this, and have been in contact with all these people on a regular basis all day Saturday night, Sunday night, today, and now we're doing this today because we have substantive information to give you. I don't really want to I'm not going to react to people running for office and what they say.
Okay, thank you. And also the Human Rights Coalition was here today to demand that the prisons are included in any distribution plan. Just to confirm, does your distribution plan include provisions for getting water to the county and federal prison?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pat. We'll go to Carrie Carando, and I believe this is CBS News National. And if not, Carrie, please refer to Joe for any other questions if we do a second round. Actually, and I'm seeing this is Philadelphia, so I'm going to move over to Denise Clay Murray. Denise.
Good afternoon, everyone. I have two questions. One regards price gouging for water. What is the city doing in terms of that? You're seeing a lot of people buying cases and cases of water, and there's a potential for price gouging with that. What is the city doing to
I
kind of
have
head it off?
not addressed it personally, but I'm going to ask the law department if there's any recourse. I wouldn't think in a society that we have and the financial system we have, you're going to be able to stop people from charging what they choose to charge. But we could certainly look into it. We can back to you.
Okay, and my second question concerns Bucks County's part in all this, because that is where the spill happened. What are they doing, or what has the city, been talking about doing to kind of like make the city whole on this? Because we didn't do this to ourselves; they kind of did it to us.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say Bucks County is responsible for this. Our best understanding is this comes from one site in one township. It is under investigation. My understanding that investigation is being led by the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. So we as a city are going to wait until that investigation is over, and we'll certainly be interested in results, and then we will identify the appropriate actions for the city of Philadelphia and the residents of Philadelphia when that information is available to us.
We're just working as hard as we can to get the situation resolved. We'll see where everything falls out going forward, but we have a good relationship with Bucks County and its government, and this is a private company.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We'll now go to Danny Freeman with CNN. Danny.
Good afternoon, everyone. For Mayor Kenney or for Mr. Carroll, what would you say to residents who are hesitant to trust the city's guidance after some of those mixed messages on Sunday?
Well, I really want to reinforce a couple of things. We have conducted dozens of tests, all of them that have come back with negative results, meaning no contamination in the water. And everything we have done to communicate with the public has been done in the interest of both transparency and out of an abundance of care and caution to make sure our people are safe. And so everything we're doing is to push information forward so people can have the comfort that we're guaranteeing when you turn your tap on, you're not exposed to these contaminants. So based on that, we may be over communicating with people. And as a result, perhaps we're elevating folks' anxieties. It's a difficult thing to balance. But in giving this information for people to evaluate, we're hoping we're able to build trust with the community so that they can understand we're giving them the best information we have. The water is safe, and this is something that helps them make decisions and hopefully have more trust in the work that we're doing.
And as Mike said, it's a difficult thing to balance, because if we were to hold on to information and not put it out there, we could be answering the same question from you as to why we didn't speak earlier. So, I mean, it's emotional. People are concerned and afraid. We're doing our best to reassure them by thorough testing and continuous testing. And I think we got one of the best water departments in the country. We have confidence in the engineers who work there and the people who run our water system.
Thank you. And quickly for my second question, just who was the one who made the ultimate decision to push out that alert yesterday afternoon to recommend, out of an abundance of caution, bottled water?
I think it was a group, as this administration has always tried to be, is a group, a collaborator. We collaborate with all the people we ask to lead these departments. I am not an engineer. I am not a chemist. So, you know, if we're being recommended to do something that's in the public safety's interest, I think it's better for the elected official to listen and as opposed to second guessing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Danny. We'll go to Jason Loughlin with the Philadelphia Inquirer. Jason?
Hi, thanks. From what you said earlier, it sounds like there is still a visible cloud in the water. Is it an inevitability that is going to end up entering the city water system? And
I'm sorry.
I was going to say, is it inevitable if it's going to enter? And if it does, how long between entering the Baxter intake and reaching people's taps?
Okay, so just to be clear, there is no visible cloud in the water. That was confirmed yesterday that there is no visible cloud in the water. The Coast Guard has been testing the water over the last day or so, and they have confirmed that these chemicals are not showing up in their testing in the river. And we're confirming it as well in the river near the Baxter water treatment facility. So I just want to set the scenario there.
Thanks.
And there's also the ability to shut down the intake, which is what happened when it was close. So the key for us is not letting anything into the system to begin with, and hopefully the tide will bring it down and dissipate it into the ocean.
And that's my question. Is it possible this just will not enter the city water system at all?
Yes, and in fact, I think as the hours and days go by, it's very likely it will not enter the Philadelphia water system.
And my second question, well, I guess my fault for that, if it does, how long between it entering the reservoir and reaching people's taps? How much time would that take?
So let's just talk from the raw water basin to people's taps, okay? Because the distribution from the water treatment plant is a little bit more complicated than that. But from the raw water basin to people's taps, depending on the consumption rate and depending on how much water is in the system at that point in time, so in the treatment facility, and depending on variable we have some control over, which is the processing rate that we move water through the treatment plant. We estimate conservatively that we always have between 24 and 48 hours. So those variables will tell us whether it's closer to 48 or 24, and those are conservative estimates, just to be clear.
And my follow-up question, as somebody else mentioned, people, as we know with COVID, are very distrustful of government. People may choose to ignore what you're advising they do. I know the initial message was these particular chemicals probably wouldn't have real harm if consumed. As you're advising people to drink water from other sources, if this enters the system, why should they? What would be the harms if they do consume these?
So I want to be clear, that's not a message that came from the city of Philadelphia. The level of harm is not something that we've really commented on at all. Our focus has been on keeping people from consuming any level, any detectable level of these chemicals. And so we've applied the science to make sure we're not introducing any detectable level of these chemicals into our water system.
And why?
Thank you.
why do you want
We're
me
going to move to the next question, to the next reporter. Thanks so much for asking. Now we're going to go to Lauren Make with NBC 10. Lauren.
Hi, thanks guys for doing this. Regarding the communications from yesterday, why did the guidance change so quickly, given that you knew that you were doing tests? You described all the tests that you're doing regularly, continuously. Why did the guidance change so quickly yesterday?
The reasons are a little bit convoluted, I think, to list them all. What I want to emphasize is when we had information, we provided it. That began with the in-person press conference we had upstairs here at the Fire Administration Building. Again, it was covered by one news team. We began the process of pushing that out, and as it was being pushed out, we got more information. And so it went out as information was being developed, and we decided on another message, and that second message was the message we gave people until 11:30 p.m. tonight. I'm sorry, 11:59 p.m. tonight to comfortably use their water. And so again, just to set it straight, we're extending that to 3:30 p.m. tomorrow based on the information that we got prior to 4 o'clock today. So the information is coming in because the testing is continuous. And as the mayor spoke, we have to wait for the testing to be completed and the results to come back before we can give anybody any information. As was spelled out for the previous question, we have to determine how much water is in the system at the water treatment plant, what the flow rates are, and based on these variables, we can estimate how much time the public has. It's very dynamic. It requires some time for us to do that analysis to come up with those safe, conservative estimates. That time frame is each time we get test results back.
I'd like to add that, again, the testing is continuous and it takes hours to complete the test. So if you had something, test A, if you waited 2 hours, there may be several hours after that for it to be completed, and the same as you go on to test B and test C.
Thank you, Commissioner. Lauren, do you have more questions?
Yes. Have you seen, you said that there is no visible plume right now. Have you seen any other impacts of it? Any impacts on fish, any fish kill situation, impacts on vegetation, any other impacts from those contaminants that have been concerning?
Yeah, we've confirmed there's been no fish kill related to this event, and we have no evidence, and we have not seen any other indications that the contamination has caused harm.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. We'll now go to Chris O'Connell with Fox 29. Chris.
Hey guys, thank you for taking my call. I guess this one for Mayor. Mayor, I'm just kind of taking notes here. So far, I've heard you have a list of potentially impacted addresses. You're asking people or there's a recommendation by FEMA to have a 3-day supply of water. You say yourself you're trying to sharpen the message. You also have a distribution plan for water. And then you also say it's safe and it will be safe until tomorrow. Do you see why some people think there may be some mixed messages here in what happened with this, even in the early sense of this? We're preparing for something, but we're saying we're very safe. And I want to I know you guys have been in meetings all day, and I can appreciate all these meetings you guys are working on. I really do. I've been out in the supermarkets. There is no water right now at the Walmart in South Philly. There is no water at the Giant in South Philly. There is no water at the ShopRite in South Philly. It may be safe, but perception is reality. Are you worried about further mixed messages over the next couple days?
I'm worried about making sure that there's no contaminant in our water supply so that people can actually be safe, feel safe and be safe. As it's been said a number of times, the process of testing is what takes longer than you would like, longer than we would like. To make sure that the tests are accurate, we have to wait for the information, and then we have to push it out. So, I mean, look, it's a difficult situation. You're going to find critics all the time. And you just got to make sure it's safe, make sure that the water supply stays safe, and we'll move on from this situation.
Mayor, this isn't political criticism. This is safe drinking water. And with what we're seeing in Ohio and around the country, this is a very strong issue. And I think people need to hear from their mayor to say that their water is safe. And why are all these preparations being taken if our water's safe? And I do have a follow-up question.
Because it's better to be safe than not be ready. As I said earlier, we constructed an entire hospital on the gym floor of the Leocore Center, costing millions of dollars, and never used a bed. What would happen if the hospitals got overflowed and we needed it, hadn't prepared for it? So, I mean, on one hand, you can criticize people for not being prepared, and then on the other hand, you can criticize them for being over-prepared. I'd rather be over-prepared.
My follow-up question: has anyone with the city have been in contact with this company? Has any litigation, any legal proceedings been done in terms of record holding? And does the city know exactly what kind of molecular chemistry that this chemical was? That's some environmental biologists asked me to ask that. Do we actually know molecular chemistry of what was spilled here?
So I'll try to take this one on. This is under the jurisdiction of the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. They are conducting the investigation, and we will receive the results of that investigation. And when we receive the results of that investigation, we will determine whether there's more appropriate action for the city of Philadelphia to take. We have been on conference calls that have been organized together with the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection and the firm in question, and they have been cooperating fully in terms of responding to this event, providing very open, clear information that we found to be very actionable for us to develop our sampling and for us to work with regional partners to do the testing and receive the results. That testing does deal with the chemistry. And I'll answer your second question that way. The chemistry is reasonably well understood, but not perfectly understood, according to the information that we've received from the Pennsylvania DEP. You should know that the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection has been involved. I cannot tell you in what capacity, but they have been involved in the response in East Palestine. They're aware of all the science related to that, and they're aware of all the science that exists across the nation with these potential contaminants. And so we're on the receiving end of that information, and it's provided to us appropriately by the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. And we are coordinating with them and all the other parties, including the firm in question, to develop our own response.
Thank you, Mike. We will now go to Isa Sanchez with Telemundo 62.
Thank you, Joy. Hello, everyone. I'm going to ask my question in Spanish, if that's okay. I know this has been answered before, just one briefly. Si nos pueden decir brevemente si el agua es segura o no y cuáles son las recomendaciones para la comunidad hispana en español para que ellos puedan entender.
If you could tell us very briefly, I know this has been mentioned before about if the water is safe, so the people, the Spanish-speaking people can understand and hear from you also.
Yeah, your water is safe to drink. We encourage people that they can drink, they can cook with, they can use the water available at their tap normally at this time. They should know, everyone should know that their water is safe to drink at least through 3:30 p.m. tomorrow. And we will update people with more information in the morning.
Quiero que sepan que el agua está bien, es segura para usarla. La pueden utilizar para cocinar, la pueden utilizar el uso del agua sin ningún problema. Es todo seguro hasta las 3:30 de la tarde el día de mañana.
I'd also like to take this opportunity to advise people that we are recommending no closures of schools or daycares tomorrow and no alterations to normally scheduled events.
También estamos recomendando de que no se cierren nada de las escuelas o las guarderías o nada que esté relacionado a los eventos de no tener agua.
And a second and last question.
Gracias.
We know that it's latex. Para la gente que tal vez tenga alergia al látex, ¿hay algún riesgo para su piel? ¿Algún tipo de reacción que probablemente tal vez pueda afectarlos si se bañan o usan esta agua?
So I know that this is related to latex. For the people that are allergic to latex, should they be in contact with the water? Is this something that they would be an allergic reaction to them if they come in contact with the water?
Yeah, so this is a really important point. Now, there is no contamination of the water currently, but if we were to have a problem, the latex that we're talking about is very different. So people who are allergic to latex are allergic to the naturally occurring latex rubber, such as what's used in latex gloves. This is synthetic latex, so that allergy does not apply in this case, even if we were to have contamination.
Bueno, una cosa que es importante señalar es de que actualmente no hay nada de contaminación. Además, el látex que estamos hablando acá es diferente a un látex regular como fuera el de los guantes de hule que estamos refiriéndonos. Este tipo de látex es sintético.
Thank you very much. Gracias.
Gracias, Isa. We will now go to Zoe Reed with WHYY. Zoe?
Hi, thank you for your time. My first question is, if contaminants were to arise in the water, would you have the filtration systems on hand to remove them? And if not, are you confident that you would be able to supply alternative water to the residents?
Okay, so we are continuing to evaluate effective treatment in that eventuality. Our understanding and our observation and the information we're getting from partners is that we do have the capacity with the materials, the treatment materials we have on hand to address that situation. We would continue testing, of course, throughout the treatment process and inform the public all the way along the way. In that eventuality that we did feel like contaminants were working their way through the treatment process and were potentially reaching customers, as was mentioned before, we are, out of an abundance of care and in the interest of preparedness, developing and refining our water distribution plans.
Okay, and then a final question. It's my understanding that the water department mixes water from the different treatment plants to serve some parts of the city. Has the department removed the water from the Baxter plant from the mix in these areas?
Because the water from the Baxter plant is safe and there are no contaminants in the water from the Baxter plant, we have not done that. We will monitor the situation, of course, as we said, and keep testing the water. And we do have some capacity to provide timely information on a block by block basis if there's any concern moving forward. I want to reiterate that members of the Philadelphia community who live west of the Schuylkill River, we have verified that there's absolutely no exposure to anyone on that side of the river from the Baxter water treatment facility under any circumstance. But again, the water from the Baxter treatment facility is safe to drink.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now go to Sherry Darden with Scoop USA Media. Sherry?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Couple of questions. First, with regard to what you just said about the residents on the west side, they've been given clearance to say that they're safe. Water is fluid, so what happens if tomorrow they're not safe, but they drank the water? What happens with them, or should they check every single day?
So folks west of the Schuylkill River have absolutely nothing to worry about. The water is in the Delaware River watershed, and the water that people consume west of the Schuylkill River does not come from the Delaware River watershed at all.
Okay, thank you for that one. And worst case scenario, have you guys thought about worst case scenario and how things would go if it does come, if it is infected, and like what's the worst case scenario? House water, bath water? Have you written down anything that you should be telling us, I guess, for worst case scenario?
As we put in the releases, What we're talking about is the drinking and cooking of water, so ingesting it through your mouth.
Okay.
And so that means in that worst case scenario, we would advise people they can continue to bathe with it. They can, wash their car if they care to with it. You can do anything except drink it and cook with it and then eat that food. And so we will initiate a water distribution plan. Like I've said, we're refining that now to make sure people have drinking water. What people can do if they're able to is, as we've said several times, get empty containers, run your tap, fill these bottles, pans, anything like a pitcher, and just hang on to them. And so we expect this event to begin to pass by about Thursday, and by next week, it'll be completely behind us. But, what we can learn from this is that people do need to follow that FEMA guidance to have 1 gallon of water per person for 72 hours, 3 days on hand. That's the best practice any resident can take to make sure they're protected.
That's just not for this.
That's right.
For hurricanes, tornadoes, any types of other natural disasters, people should be prepared. So this is not related directly to this.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Thank you, Mayor Kenney.
All right, so thank you.
Thank you. We'll now go to Jack Tomsek with Metro. Jack?
Yes, thank you. My question has to do with, you're talking about the plume and everything. Can you tell where the contaminants are, if they've reached the Baxter plant, if they've passed it, if they're still upstream?
Well, let me take a crack first. This is why we're doing the testing, and that's what tells us whether there's no risk or not. The plume itself, we use visual indications, but we also rely on the information that we're getting from our partners, including the Coast Guard, which is actively testing in the river. And just to reiterate, all of these tests are revealing no contamination in the Delaware River.
Okay, so, but where do you get the Wednesday or Thursday it should pass? How do you know that? Is that through modeling or?
Yes, it is. And so we have an understanding of how much water flows in the Delaware River. And we also understand the geography and sort of the subsurface, the contours underneath the water and how the water moves through the river. And so these models help us understand how water keeps moving towards the bay. And it's not, it's not like the water on the surface and the water at the bottom move at the same rate. And so there is some complexity, but even incorporating that complexity, the models are very conservative. And what they're showing us is that at some point between Wednesday night and Thursday, all of the water that was present in the river when this event took place will have passed by the Baxter Water Treatment Facility and proceeded towards the Delaware Bay. So there will be no more risk that we will take that water in. I do want to reiterate, though, we will continue testing after that point to ensure that we never did take in any contaminated water prior to that point.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jack. We will now go to Kayla J with WURD. Kayla, you have the floor.
Hello, Kayla J from WURD. I want to know, what is the plan for restaurants and other food and beverages and hospitality programs, as well as our gardeners? What are you advising them to do where their business kind of depends on this water?
Yeah. So individual businesses are going to have to make their decisions. The information we're providing them that the water is safe to use at least until 3:30 p.m. tomorrow, hopefully helps them make that determination. As we mentioned, we're recommending at this time no cancellations of any event, and we will update with more information that businesses, restaurants, and others can use to make decisions tomorrow morning. I'll make the floor available in case Commerce Director Ann Nadal wants to elaborate or add to that.
Thank you, Mike. I think we would just say what Mike just said, that no closures are recommended, no cancellations are recommended at this point. It is safe to continue to use tap water for service, for water glasses for cooking, et cetera. So the same guidelines that apply for our homes and residences would apply here.
Okay, thank you. One more question. For those with pets, are you suggesting the same thing, to just use the bottled water versus the tap water?
So again, your tap water is safe now, so you should use your tap water for yourself and you should use it for your pets. And we'll keep advising you if that situation changes, but anything that's safe for you to drink and eat is going to be safe for your pets.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you both. And we have 5 minutes for a second round of questions. So I'm going to go to Carrie Corrado with CBS 3. Carrie.
Hi, everyone. I just kind of want to go over the business and restaurant plan that we just talked about. I know you said there was a distribution plan for residents if this does actually get worse, but what should restaurants and businesses do tomorrow at 3:30 if this doesn't get any better? Like we mentioned, it does. A lot of them are relying on this water for every part of their business. So is there a long-term plan for them, like you have a distribute plan for residents?
Well, our distribution plan is going to focus on the most vulnerable populations. So businesses will have to make their own decisions, as we move forward, but we want to make sure they have all the information that they can in order to make the best decisions for themselves and for the safety of the public. But again, I'll turn it over to Ann Nadal and she can add anything she needs to that.
Thanks, Mike. I would recommend that our businesses heed the caution that we have said for everybody, that the FEMA rule of maintaining water for 3 days is the best way to make sure that their businesses can continue uninterrupted, and use containers like Mike said earlier. It's the same rule that applies to the residents. Every container you have, if you're concerned about it, then please get some fresh tap water now. There is nothing wrong with storing tap water that way, to make sure that they have what they need.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we will now go to Sean Walsh with Inquirer. Sean.
Thanks very much. Just following up on Jason's question earlier, I think the discussion got cut off, but if there is a leak into the water supply, what would the potential health outcomes be?
Okay, I just want to be clear. There won't be a leak into the water supply. We'll know in the water that we're testing whether there's contamination or not. And at that point, what we'll have to do is we'll have to continue to process the water through the distribution system until there is no contamination in the water. And people should take the precautions that we're talking about in terms of using stored water and also working with us through our distribution system. So in terms of the health impacts, I'm going to ask Health Commissioner Vettigel to comment.
Sure. So, again, the water right now is safe. We have not had any tests come up positive of our water. So water is safe. We're not anticipating that that's going to change. So we're watching this to be careful. We want to make sure that we can give people the information that they need. If we were to have contamination, what we'd be looking at is a very, very low level. These chemicals, by the time they would have come through the river and into Philadelphia and through treatment, would have to be at a very, very low level. So, we would certainly want to inform people if that were to be the case. The kinds of risks we're talking about are extremely unlikely. So it's more, would people, want to take precautions in that case? Typically at the levels we're talking about, there is potential for these chemicals in higher concentrations to cause skin irritation, to cause neurological effects. At these very low levels that would have to be the case in any contamination, we wouldn't necessarily anticipate seeing any effects.
But also the issue in Ohio, that particular substance was concentrated heavily in those train cars. So it's not apples and oranges really. It was a very concentrated amount of chemical that went into the river at one time.
Yeah. So, if we were to see something, we would certainly want to tell people so that they could make a choice about whether to drink water that they've stored in the short term or to drink bottled water. We're not anticipating that that's going to happen, but we do want to be fully transparent with people about what we're looking at and where we are in this process.
And I'd like to make another point. As we discussed earlier, we do have another layer of protection for the public in terms of our treatment options. So that's the first thing we would turn towards, is treating any contamination that we found. And if we treated the contamination and were able to detect that that treatment was 100% effective, then we would be able to give the public the comfort that they could continue using their tap water.
Thank you. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
These are chemicals about which we don't have a huge amount of information. So that's part of the reason we want to be cautious, is, you know, just that lack of exact information about long-term health side effects from these things. So again, we don't have any exposure now. Hopefully we will never have any exposure, but that's why we're being cautious.
Thanks very much. And then my second question is following up on Pat Loeb's question earlier for the mayor. It's not just the mayoral candidates who have commented on you not appearing publicly yesterday. Could you talk about the decision? Do you think it might have been more effective messaging for the city if you were?
I've been dealing with this since early Saturday evening. I was at the UNCF fundraiser for HBCUs and was on the phone most of the time with all the folks in this room. Same thing all day Sunday. When we finally had really good information after a lot of testing, I'm sitting here talking to you.
Thank you. Sophia, we can go to you for one question. I also want to get to Annie McCormick and then wrap it up. So I'm going to allow you both to do just one more question. So Sophia, you can go ahead.
Sure, thank you. So I have a question about redundancies in the system. If you were to detect these contaminants in the Baxter plant and had to issue a advisory not to drink the tap water, would you be able to serve the whole city on water from the Schuylkill, or turn to some other redundancy instead of having to, have people use bottled water? And if so, how long would it take to stand that up, and what would it entail?
So those involve long-term investments by the department that are already being contemplated and have been as part of the drinking water master plan that was put out a few years back. And so, yes, that is an objective for the water to have that, the water system to have that level of redundancy. It is work that needs to take place, and that we will move forward with those projects. But as of today, the 100% level of redundancy where we can switch from one treatment facility to the next is not something that exists in our system, which is why we have to take the types of precautions at times like these.
Thank you, Mike. Annie McCormick from 6ABC, you have the floor.
Sorry. One last question in regards again to restaurants. Are they basically going to have to wait until 3:30 to see? And I know that you're talking about the FEMA preparedness, but let's be honest, not everybody follows those. And some restaurants, their preparedness is much different than a resident's house, than a household. Even if you have 5 kids, it's different than a restaurant. So I'm wondering, are you having conversations? This might be for the commerce director. Are you having conversations with businesses and telling them, prior to 3:30, or is 3:30 this deadline that people have to wait and see?
No,
whether or not.
There'll be an update. Annie, there'll be an update tomorrow morning by the water commissioner and by emergency management sometime tomorrow morning, which we hope will then further extend the timeline. They are under the same, guidance as everybody else in the city. And we are available, as I said, we are available at any point for restaurants to reach out to us. We are in direct contact with the Restaurant and Lodging Association, as well as the Hotel Association, Visit Philly, and all of our commerce partners to continue spreading this information as quickly and as accurately as possible.
Just to follow up to that too, is that in your distribution plan, will it cover having to give large quantities so that businesses can still operate if this were to be a situation where you found something in the water?
As I indicated before, the focus is going to be the most vulnerable users. So you can maybe extrapolate from that The plan is not finalized though, so I want to be clear about that. But the focus is going to be people who have no other options in terms of how to get their water.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Annie. Thanks, everyone. With that, we conclude our briefing. Thanks, everyone, for joining.
Thank you so much.